Alright, how's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac, and I'm here with a video on Inception, the 2010 movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, Ellen Page, bunch of other actors, bro. Really crazy movie. Came out 2010. I think I mentioned that already, I don't remember. But this movie, I've been planning to watch it for a long time, and I mean well over 10 years, because I've heard about this movie so much when I was growing up, and it was just like this movie is crazy, super crazy, because the premise is literally, actually I shouldn't say that because that's a spoiler, but the premise itself is crazy. I just have to state that from the jump. It is, the premise is insane. It is directed by Christopher Nolan, the same guy who made Interstellar, like, well, who will make Interstellar, considering when this is made. Which, now thinking about it, it makes sense why he made these two movies. This man is insane. Like he just makes these movies that make no sense, but they make sense somehow. I don't know. But Christopher Nolan, crazy actor, but that man knows what he's doing, even though some of us don't. But Inception, I if I had to rate it, honestly, like just as a quick rating, it's a 7. It's not the greatest movie. I will say that I do like Interstellar more, but that's more because I'm partial to space. But again, the concept of this movie is super interesting. So it's not like I don't like the concept. It's just the first half of the movie was really setup, and that setup was kind of boring when I was watching it. I couldn't get invested into the movie until halfway through, but that's when it really got going. It felt like the same way with Interstellar, except the time period to get invested with Interstellar was a lot shorter. Here, it's you have this crazy grab from the beginning, and then it just fizzles out until it picks back up during the middle to the second half of the movie. And like that's fine, you slow burn movies aren't the problem for me because I watched Batman and Dune, and I love those movies, or the Batman, excuse me, 2022, and Dune 2021. But I I I don't. The difference between that and this is that this didn't grab me from the jump. I didn't know what was going on in the beginning. The Batman grabbed me from the jump. Dune grabbed me from the jump. So it's just like, oh, that's why it's different in my case. So while the second half was really good, the first half was just like it was kind of a slog to get through in some aspects. But once the second half started going, it was fire. It was genuinely fire. The music was interesting, for sure. Not the most memorable soundtrack for me, but it's more normal movie soundtrack and whatever. 2010 as well, so I'm not expecting something crazy. But for being a 2010 film, the the CGI is pretty good. Honestly, like I can see it sometimes how it kind of like just in some places, but it's not like too or well, excuse me, the Phantom Menace. It felt like the Phantom Menace CGI back in 1999, so that's a lot better. But regardless, it's definitely a 7. The actors are good. Leonardo DiCaprio is fire. This thing is one of the first movies I ever watched with him in it, so it's just fire having him in it. I love his acting right now. Tom Hardy was cool. I didn't realize that Tom Hardy was like I knew who Tom Hardy was. He's an actor, but I never watched a movie with him in it, which is kind of crazy to think about. But anyways, yeah, 7 out of 10. Let me get into the spoiler section. Spoiler-free section over. So this movie is about Leonardo DiCaprio's character Dom Cobb, right? He is a man who hops in and out of dreams, and in this movie world, dreams can be hopped into, and there is no explanation as to why or how or what monopoly there is around it. But one thing's for certain, that Dom Cobb and Arthur, they never get his last name, work together to hop into dreams because they're forced to by a corporation. And he and Arthur and another guy called an architect, I forgot his name, Nash, his name is Nash, all go into one guy's dream, right? They go into Saito's dream, and he's super important. He's a powerful guy. And he knows that it's a dream. He wakes up and he realizes this. And they escape. They manage to escape, but but Saito finds all three of them, right? And as they're about to escape to go do some business, Saito offers uh Dom and Arthur a deal because Nash sold them out, and they're he's not gonna do anything to Nash. It's what the company that they work for is going to do to him. But Saito is like, all right, I need you to hop into somebody's stream, Fisher. I forgot the dude's name, but something Fisher. And they're like, but how? And well, not how, but like they need to implant a dream into Fisher, and that's difficult because the very concept of coming up with things originally is difficult. Originality is super difficult, especially in the subconscious. When you're dreaming, you if somebody directly plants a dream or an idea into your mind, they'll know it's a foreign thing and it won't work. Which, like, explaining this is hard. If anything, you might have to watch the movie to understand it, and if not, just look it up on the internet, like originality and just the concept of that in Inception. But in essence, it's just they can't have somebody directly plant it into their mind. They have to think that they're originally coming up with this idea with persuasive maneuvers. Like, if I tell you you guys should go watch uh One Piece or something, if you check it out, it'll be laid in there that I recommended it to you or that somebody else recommended it to you. But if I mention One Piece in passing, like, oh, it's kind of like One Piece or it reminds me of this show, but not directly like, oh, you should go watch it, but just more like persuading you, like, su- well, not subversively, but in a sense, it's manipulation, in a way, and that's what they're doing. They're gonna manipulate Fisher's thoughts, in his dream, to think that he made this idea originally, so that he can because his father is dying, right? His father is dying, and he's gonna inherit the will, and he's gonna inherit the company, and Saito's company is against them, and so he's trying to have Saito, or excuse me, Fisher, drop the company completely and do his own endeavors, go into other business ventures, and that's the whole goal of the movie is to get Fisher to drop the what's it called the company to not continue his father's business venture, and at first, Saito seems like a bad guy, and he is, because at the end of the day, it's profit margins. All he cares about is his business. But in the movie, while we see this, we see a different side of him. We see a guy who's willing to complete the mission and be like, he's not a bad guy when he's doing it, when he's in there. He's not sacrificing himself for other people. He's trusting the professionals, and he's doing what they tell him to do. Or excuse me, what they tell him to do. Yeah. And once they agree to this deal, I was just explaining the background. Cobb goes to multiple different places, right? And most of these are in dreams. Most of these are in dreams. I have to make that very clear. They never leave from the warehouse that they're at. Cobb is going into other people's dreams to get them to come over to where he's at, and he assembles a team of six, where it's Cobb, Arthur, Saito, Eam, who's a guy. I forgot the name. He's I don't even remember honestly. I forgot what his role was, but he's important. You have uh I don't even like uh I don't even know how to pronounce her name, but she's the only woman on the team, and she's Ellen Page. She's literally Ellen Page. If you remember Beyond Two Souls, she's the main character from that. If anybody still remembers that game came out 10 years ago. That's crazy. But yeah, if you remember Beyond Two Souls, that's the character. That's who she is. And the last guy, I forgot his name as well, but whatever. Six people, and they go onto a private flight with Fisher because Saito bought the entire airline, and it's a flight from New Zealand, I think. Is it Poland? I don't remember, but it's a 10-hour flight from Poland or New Zealand to Los Angeles. Actually, you think it makes sense that it is Poland, because that does seem like a 10-hour flight. But regardless, they have 10 hours in real life to persuade Fisher. And this is like halfway into the movie, by the way, like that they're enacting the plan. because the first hour of the movie is setting up the plan and understanding all the players in play, right? And it's that the this is what I was talking about, where it's like it's kind of boring in the beginning, but the second half is really where it starts getting crazy. So once they're on the plane, everybody is like falling asleep. Cobb and some of his crew were basically planting ideas in what's this dude's name, Fisher's mind, like, oh, are you Mr. Fisher's son? And he's like, yeah, I am. He's like, oh shoot, I'm sorry for your loss, man. I really am. And it's just basically like planting ideas, manipulating from the start while they're awake. And they, what's it called? They all fall asleep, and this is the plan. Now that they're in this one, they have to go through three dreams, and they're all in the same thing. Like literally, babushka dolls. I think is what they're called. The dolls that have dolls inside of them, and you open them, and it's just a bunch of small ones. So that's basically what Inception is, where you fall asleep, right? You fall asleep and you're in a dream, and then you fall asleep in that dream. Now there's a dream in a dream, and then you fall asleep in that dream, and it's a dream in a dream in a dream, and then you fall asleep again, and it's a dream in a dream in a dream in a dream, which all connects back to the main person. And if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. It's hard to explain without seeing it. But what I just described is you, the person, falling asleep and having four instances of a dream all running concurrently. They're not like they're separate, but they're all running at the same time. And the main concept of this that you should know is that each dream has a different sense of time. So in the real world, the flight is 10 hours. In the dream world, the the time is different. It's a lot slower. And as one of the characters described, the time doesn't like it doesn't get slower. It compounds. So it's basically like um, putting something to the power of, right? Like that's basically what's happening. So in the first dream, 10 seconds is 10 seconds. In the second dream, it's like 3 minutes. In the third dream, it's 60 minutes, bro. And it's just it gets longer and longer to where Cobb had an inception go on for so long with him and his wife that it lasted 50 years, and they lived out almost an entire lifetime in a dream. When they woke back up, they were disillusioned basically, and that's something I need to explain later as well. But basically, they go into that dream, the first layer of the dream. I'll just refer to them as layers, and it's a rainy city because the man just lost his father, so he's probably feeling emotional. And they kidnap him. They plant some ideas to layer for the second dream, and they leave one person in each dream because like awake because they have to fall asleep in that dream to make it to go into the next one. And one person is there as basically the kick, like in dreams when the phenomenon where you're falling in a dream and you wake up like startled. That's basically what it is, like basically dying in a dream or being startled awake to awaken yourself. That's what they're doing. So each person in a sense is an anchor, and that's why they're there. They have to stay awake so everybody else can fall asleep. And the more you go down, the less people you have. So at the end of the movie, you'll see what happens. But anyways, so they go to the second dream, and this one's a hotel, and this one's Arthur's hotel. So it's honestly fire. It's so cool. Like Arthur is definitely my favorite character, bro. But in this one, they're planting more ideas into Fisher's head, where Cobb actually does the Mr. Charles trick, which is Mr. Charles is the guy who is your security in your dream, because your subconsciously has a security in your subconscious, which makes no sense, but don't worry, it's fine. And it's basically there to guard any foreign intruders or ideas from entering your mind and ruining your dreams. And they're basically like the antagonist of this dream. There are no human antagonists. The antagonists are your subconscious, the dreamer's subconscious. And as we go down deeper, it gets more and more risky because A, you lose yourself, and B, the subconscious just gets stronger and stronger. It's trying to protect the dreamer as much as it can. And it's just like Interstellar, where the concepts are so unique and different and creative and artsy. It's so cool. It's just genuinely so cool out of all things. Whether it's overcomplicated or convoluted or just downright strange. One thing's for sure, it's really cool. But regardless, at the hotel, Arthur becomes the second anchor while they all go into the dream after Mr. Charles' tactic works, where again Cobb is the security and he's trying to guide Mr. Fisher, telling him like, "Yo, this is a dream, but I'm here to protect you because there are foreign entities in your mind right now." And in reality, we know who the foreign entities are. But that's the whole ploy. It's using his mind against him, trying to persuade him like, "Yo, we're the good guys," but in reality, you are not the good guys. You are the main characters. That's it. But regardless, you go into the third layer of the dream, and this one's uh, a snow like facility that has the safe that has the important stuff in Fisher's mind, and that is the will. So once they go into that facility, one thing that's important is that Saito got shot in the first stream, and because they're performing Inception, he his mind will be turned into mush. He'll be in a vegetative state where because he died in that dream, there's no wake up that's not the kick. He will die in the dream and then he'll just be in a vegetative state because he never woke up. He just died. That's it. So it's literally like it doesn't. On one hand, it doesn't make sense because if you die in, well, actually no, because he's dying in all of these dreams. So if he dies in these dreams, well, okay. Let me try to explain this as best as I can. The man got shot in the first dream. If he dies in that first dream before his other versions die, they all die. And that means that he himself is dead. Like there's no coming back, unless. Well, actually, no, not that there isn't any coming back. Excuse me. Let me amend that. If he dies, they have to get him in his deep subconscious, and that is something important that comes up later. But just know, Saito is dying. And Saito, excuse me. They call him Saito, but it's Saito. But just know that he's dying. It's a huge plot point. But yeah, they're in the facility and they're getting all the past all the guards causing distractions. And one thing that's important is that um, Cobb has PTSD from his wife because they spent 50 years in the dream, right? And I didn't explain this, but because of those 50 years, his wife became disillusioned with reality, and she didn't know what was real from dream. So she thought because they woke up in reality that they weren't in reality, that they were still in a dream. And she killed herself thinking that like, oh shoot, I I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna wake up and things are gonna be good. But it's man, it just reminds me of the ending. My goodness, but we don't know. We generally do not know because the ending just raises more questions. But yeah, so, Cobb's wife killed herself, and he keeps her memory alive in his dreams, and he keeps dreaming to feel guilt for the fact that he basically brainwashed her into letting them out, and that's something that we learn at the end of the movie. But yeah, he feels supreme guilt, and that's deep in his conscious. It is buried inside of him, and that's something that is just like, man, man, oh man, Cobb is a very flawed character. Not in terms of like, oh, he's badly written, but just he is a flawed man, genuinely flawed man. He will do anything for the goal, even if it means hurting other people. It's just like that's messed up, man. That's really messed up. But regardless, once they get into that third dream, Mal shows up, which is Cobb's wife, and she shoots him because she's a huge presence in Cobb's dreams. So she's going to be there no matter what. until Cobb deals with that PTSD, with that guilt. And since Fisher is shot and he's dying, they have to go into Cobb's dream instead. 4 layers of Inception, by the way, and basically deal with Mal and going to save Saito. And since because they basically know like yeah, Saito's dead, we have to save him now, or we'll never be able to. And they go into Cobb's dream. They deal with Mal. He has a sweet parting with her, where he realizes like, yeah, you're not Mallory, or excuse me, you're not Mal. You aren't the real her because you're just a shade. I could never recreate the perfect person I fell in love with. Never. So basically, he parts with her, and he goes to find Saito because all the kicks are activating. Since time works differently, the kicks all had to be activated like at the same time, but that's hard to because time is different. But the kicks are activating. First was the first dream kick, then it was the second one with Arthur, then it was the third one with Eames, and now where well yeah that's it. And they're all waking up. I forgot at Ellen Page's character. It was with what's his face Cobb, and she woke up. She's like, please find Saito, and get us out of here because this plan only works if Saito is alive. They need him, and they all get out except for Cobb and Saito. They're all in the first dream, and they don't wake up until Cobb and Saito wake up. So Cobb goes to Saito to find him in the deepest level of of subconscious and limbo, and he finds him. Saito lived a whole life. He is no longer a young man, and Cobb is there. He's super injured, super messed up, and he goes to find him, and he says the words like, "We'll be young men forever, filled with regret." And they both wake up. They both wake up because he got him, and he pulled out the totem, because totems are basically ways to remind yourself whether you're in real life or not. If like let's say a dreidel, right? A dreidel from Jewish culture, you spin a dreidel and it stops eventually because that's the real world. That's just how things operate. Things are meant to stop once motion stops. It's well, it's physics. Yeah, it's just physics. Yeah, literally that, just that. But if you're in a dream, physics don't apply because it's your subconscious forming it. You're not gonna put physics on a dreidel in your subconscious because why would you, right? There's other things forming in that dream. And if someone else is in your dream, they're gonna use a totem as a way to remind themselves, like, oh shoot, am I awake or am I still in a dream? And in Inception, honestly, well, actually, I'll talk about that. Well, no, I'll talk about it now because I forgot something in my last BoJack video that I said I was gonna talk about. But in Inception, I thought it was gonna be like dream, dream, dream. You didn't know what dream was dream or whatever. Like I didn't think that it would have a cohesive plot, is what I'm trying to say, which is surprising because it actually did, and that's saying something because the plot was barely cohesive in terms of sometimes you just didn't know what was going on. But sometimes you did, and that's the best part because they're doing that on purpose. They Christopher Nolan doesn't want you knowing what's going on unless if he needs you to, and that really shows in the ending because once Cobb and Saito come back and they're awake in the plane, they arrive on Los Angeles, they go through immigration, and Cobb isn't wanted because the reason why he's doing all this is because he's trying to get back to his family in the United States, but the U.S. government thinks that he killed his wife, so he's wanted. He's a wanted man, and Saito cleared up all that because Cobb completed the mission. So he's free to go about his business in immigration. And he comes back home, he sees his kids, and he sees their face for the first time in a long time. He sees his dad, and it's just super cool. It's generally super cool. But the thing that surprises everything is that, or surprises me the most, is that at the end of the movie, Cobb spins his top on the table, and that was his totem, basically. to tell whether he was in a dream or not. But the top never stopped spinning. And the general consensus is that Cobb never left a dream. Like he's still in a dream, and that's just like the ending. Like I guess the main idea is literally just it doesn't matter whether he is able to leave the dream or not. At least he's able to see his children. But that's just like, so does that mean that he's stuck in limbo then, or what? Because that doesn't give us any answers. That just means that Cobb got a happy ending, and that's it. We don't know what happened to Saito, whether or not the factory, or excuse me, the company became number one in the world. We don't know what happened to Arthur or Ellen Page or Tom Hardy or the other guy who was the chemist. We just know that they got to immigration and they lived, like they were happy, they were chilling. But it was just such a weird ending. It was convoluted, but it was meant to be like that. So it's like whatever. But that ending just feels like it feels bittersweet, honestly. Like he got his dream, but I don't. He'll probably notice later on that he's in a dream, and that would set up for a sequel. But they never did do a sequel, so it's like that's the best ending that Cobb's getting, because the man's finally with his children. He got his trauma resolved, and that's cool. That's very cool. But like I said, with Cobb and Saito, the movie actually begins with Cobb and Saito meeting and talking about how young men live with regret. So the movie actually foreshadowed the ending by showing the ending in the movie in the beginning, at least a little bit before it cut off. But this movie is interesting. Like it's genuinely interesting. I don't know how to talk about it because it's super confusing, but it was cool. Like again, the second half was definitely the best part for me. But the first half wasn't bad. It wasn't bad like at all. It was just not as good as the second half, which again is my measure, the way I'm measuring the rating for this movie, because the second half was really cool. It was generally really cool. Once we got to the action and mind FE stuff, I really started digging this movie because the first half was just a lot of explanation and a lot of setup and a lot of planning, And that's fine. A movie needs that. There's no reason that it shouldn't have that, because if it didn't, the payoff wouldn't be as good, which makes sense. But it's just, it wasn't that interesting to me. It generally was not that interesting. Again, slow burn movies aren't a problem for me. It only matters if the movie doesn't interest me. And this movie did interest me with the concept. It's just the first half didn't interest me with what they were doing. So it's literally just that. But the second half was awesome. It was good enough for me to give it a 7, no less. Like, it was a dope movie. Generally, it was a dope movie, and I recommend it for people who just want to think for a little bit. Like, really think what the movie was about. But besides that, the actors were good. The standout was definitely Leonardo DiCaprio. But besides that, it was a normal movie. Like, it's nothing crazy that's gonna have you like, oh, excuse me, I wasn't gonna swear. It's just to sound like I was, but it's not gonna have you shocked, really dropping your jaw, like what happened. Or it's gonna have you like leave you with something impactful. Besides the Inception stuff itself, it's a simple plot of like a man overcoming his guilt of hurting his partner and living alone, not being able to see his kids. It's a redemption story in a sense, and giving the man closure is the end of the story. So it's like, oh shoot, okay, well I mean, that's that. But besides that, overall, it's a good movie. Nothing crazy, but it's a fun watch if you want to watch it with people. If you just want to think of it a little bit, like I said earlier. But yeah, that's honestly, I think that's it for now. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next video. This has been Infinite Isaac. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.